I'ma make you bounce.
Yo, what's up aliens? AHEE here. So I'm making this video to go over a bunch of Ableton racks that I have for sale. I'll include a link to where you can get them below. But there's 25 racks in here. I made a bunch of little examples of how I use them in tracks. So let's check it out. So I've got this drum beat here, you know, that's cool. And then one of the first ones is called AHEE's Magic Transient Designer. And I'm just gonna turn this thing on. You can hear already it's being boosted quite a bit. So when you initially throw it on, it'll show up like this with everything off. And you can just turn these things up. The expander, sustain will boost all the other little things in there. You can turn on limiting. And then I have this magic function in here, which is actually another one of the racks, but you just add a little bit of magic and it just boosts the whole, beefs up the whole sound. So just a little bit. If you do too much, too crazy. And you can really see if we record this to a new track how it really does boost just the transients, not the whole track. That boosts up a little bit because of the magic, but this you can really see is what's really being pushed are the transients. So definitely get into that. Okay, so the next one here, I have just this little vocal sample.
Kill him with that flow.
And then AHEE's Robot Maker. You just toss it on as is.
Kill him with that flow.
Pretty tight.
Kill him with that flow.
And so this amount here is like a compression.
Kill him with that flow.
Super. And then this squish punch is
Kill him with that flow.
punch here,
Kill him with that
squish here. You can bring up some cool things, and then there's some reverb.
Kill him with that flow. Kill him with that. Kill him with that. Kill him with that flow.
And you can change the robot.
Kill him with that flow. Kill him with that flow. Kill him with that flow.
So definitely that one's a fun one. Automate the time there. So next up here, I've just got these raw vocals.
Can you feel our form? I can feel it too. When we have one chance, got to follow.
So instead of just like putting a bunch of different effects on there, you can now just toss on the singer vocalizer and
can you feel our form? I can
Totally
feel
different.
it too. When we have one chance, got to follow
So-
through. It's a form of dance, so ideas come
big
true.
difference.
That
So what is happening here is that there is this stereo spreader, and all the way to the left means it's just mono.
can you feel
Again.
our form? I can feel it
You can
too.
spread
When
it
we
out.
have one chance, got
Just
to
like to do a
follow
little
through.
bit there. The pre-compressor is the compression before the effects, and the post-compressor is after all the effects. And then it's got like a EQ, top boost, some reverb, and delay settings that you can change.
Can you feel our?
But yeah, super
Can you feel
easy
us?
to just throw that onto vocals and twiddle it around with it a little bit. Great place to start. So next over here, we have the AHEE's Instant Lead Maker. So I've just got like a saw and operator. You know, turn this on, totally different. Yeah. So this thing has a couple different effects in it. It's got some post gain, volume afterward, limiting the effect amount that makes it more dry. And then the timbre is like affecting what part of the frequency spectrum you're affecting. Obviously, a lot of cool possibilities with that. So here I've got just another saw wave coming out of operator. It's pitched down, and if we throw on AHEE's Trippy bass maker, see the difference there? Oh yeah. Show different potentials there. So this thing has got like a vocoder, a phaser, and some distortion in there. So turn this up, change the full answer. I like having it halfway there, turning up the phaser, playing around with the frequency. Change the pole amount. Phaser. Obviously, a lot can happen there. So over here we've got the AHEE's Auto Chopper, and so I'm just going to play this thing. So that's the sound unaffected, and then you're going to see that the amount's going to come in. And so that's one style of chopping. You can change the chop style, and you can see this section is chopped by using a sine wave, smoother, and here it's being chopped by a saw wave, more percussive. And then obviously you can change the rate and such. That one's a fun one. So here we've got the just this ambient channel, and I'm gonna turn on the gain stage widget. And so you can tell it boosts up the volume there, but it does it in sort of an interesting way. It's got 3 channels of different styles of compression, a light, medium, and a heavy compressor. So you can sort of mix and match these and bring out different aspects of the sound. And you can also open it up and throw effects like on one of them. So you could throw on this amp here, and it gives it that cool little fuzz bit of character. So that's pretty fun. Alright, so here I've got a just a bass line, and I've put a high-low splitter on it, and this effectively splits your frequency range into 2 bands, and then you can throw effects onto one of those bands. So here I've put an amp, and then I'm actually automating the split frequency over time. So you can hear the distortion starting to come in on the high end first, and then make its way down and start to distort more and more of the frequency spectrum. But it's a great way to set up your signal processing, so that way you can only put effects on only a certain part of the frequency spectrum. So here I made a little beat, and I've got it in a group, and this is probably the most useful rack out of all 25. It's the one I use the most. It's called AHEE's Magic Box, and it's essentially 4 different compressors all doing different types of compression. And I'll play the beat, and I'll add in the Magic Box. It just gels everything together and really brings life to all of it. So it's got an OTT, and then the squish punch, more transient going through on the right, less transients going to the left. Upwards compression, it sort of brings up the background details a lot. Downwards compression squishes the transients down. The glue compressor sort of glues it all together. But if you don't want to play with all those knobs, I also have a 2-knob version, which is here on the piano. So you can hear this piano. Throw in the 2-knob version. Really brings out that crackle and flutter. And it's just everything attached to one knob. So when you apply it to something else, it really helps that piano stand out with the drums in. Definitely those 2 are some of my favorites. Here, the Magic Fadeaway, you can apply this as like a way to go into a breakdown or add character splash. So that's just a regular splash. Here we'll add the fadeaway. Ah, nice. And here we'll add it to this little. You can see it's got a little magic on it. Start to fade away. Great for little outros and whatnot. And you can see here I'm automating up the magic, and it's basically the magic box built into this, and you can do some really cool sound design with that. Next up, I've got this acid bass line with this like kick behind it in a sidechain channel that is going to the AHEE's multiband sidechain. So I'm going to show it to you without it first. So it sounds like this. And now if I was just to apply a sidechain on the whole thing, it would sound like this. You know, sort of takes away from that bass line. So what the multiband sidechain does is it allows you to split the frequency and just affect one band of the frequency. So we're going to affect just the low end. And one thing that you do have to do is set up your side chain here. So it originally will say no input. You just set it to your side chain channel and it'll sound like this. That way it's just really ducking the low end to allow that low end of the kick to punch through. And then you can also automate it for a pretty interesting effect too. Check this out. So that's pretty cool. Next here we got a megaphone vocals. So here just some samples of
cannabis, marijuana.
And we'll add the megaphone vox effect to it.
Cannabis, marijuana.
High cut will
Cannabis, marijuana.
cell drive.
Cannabis,
Compression.
Cannabis, marijuana.
The delay style.
Cannabis, marijuana. Cannabis, marijuana.
So that's very fun for different vocal effects. Next we have the metal snare maker. So this is a fun way to add interesting effects to snares. So got these snare drums. Now I'll apply the snare metal maker. I don't know if you can hear it. Just adds in some metallic sound to it, and you can also automate it here to get some pretty cool effects. So I'll play it without, and now with. Yeah, definitely get some cool sound design going with that. On this channel, I'm going to be going over the mid-side splitter. So I've just got another saw wave with some overdrive and reverb on it. Sounds like that. Now if we just try doing like a regular EQ, this is just a regular EQ, and I've got a top boost on it. You know, it's almost like too bright. But if we're to add on the mid-side split and just affect the side, it turns out it brings out that brightness without having to be too bright in the center. And you can do this to affect the sides or just the mids in all sorts of interesting ways. Next is the AHEE's Mod Smash Rack. And another just saw wave, impressive, silly sounding. Now add this on and yeah, epic. And then you can apply it to this space. So without, just a saw note, and now with this. And that's automating the phaser and the bit crusher that's on there. And you can also change the amp style. And then it's got the smash amount and in and out volume, and then whether or not you want the reverb effects and delays and whatnot on there. Another great way to use the smash rack is just on drums, and this I use it in a much more subtle way. I have everything off pretty much, and I'm just turning up the smash. So without it, now with. You sort of need headphones or nice monitors to be able to tell this one, but it definitely helps out a lot. You can turn up all the way and it'll sound terrible. So definitely a more subtle approach works well with that one. And here another just saw wave in operator, and we'll add on the multiband amp. So this is what it sounds like with it on. Obviously doing a lot there. So it's essentially got 3 different amps on 3 different bands. You can control how the bands are split with these 2 modes, and you can control the amp type and the amp amount. So if I just play around with some of these, obviously you can do a lot of different sound designing with that tool. And here is just another saw wave in operator, and we're going to apply AHEE's Neuro crusher to this and see how much this thing does. It does a lot. Here we go. So what this is, it's got bit crusher downsampling, and it's got notch EQs in there, and they're being controlled on LFOs. You can control the LFO amount, and also you can control like a top end EQ boost. So definitely a lot to play around in there. Here is the Phase 808, and this, I'll play the 808, no effects. Now we'll apply the Phase 808. Yeah. Definitely lots of cool ways to use that. So we got the split hertz, which is basically splitting it into 2 bands, and you're only affecting the top band, so that way underneath it you still have that pure fundamental of the sine tone unaffected, and then you're still distorting that sine tone but only hearing the after effects in the higher frequency band. And it's got chorus and a bunch of different ways to attack do the distortion and the phaser on there. Here we have the rap vocalizer and just this rap.
Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Are you ready for the...
And now we'll apply the rap vocalizer.
Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Are you ready for the roughneck sound?
And these are the settings that it just comes as, so I've already dialed them in pretty well.
Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Are you ready for the roughneck sound?
So it's got couple different compressors on there, some reverb, EQ boost, and you can add in some saturation.
Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Are you ready for the roughneck sound? Come again with the bassline sound. Are you ready for the roughneck?
So definitely a fun, just toss it on there and you're gonna sound pretty awesome. So more just saw wave and operator, and here we've got AHEE's Shiney Space Maker, and we'll turn this on and so this is basically adding some distortion and stereo widening, and you can really play around with this and get it to be in sort of different spaces. I like to keep one of them very short and the other one I'll change the length. You can change the amount of reverb on there, what frequencies are being affected, and whether or not you want it in to have that stereo. Lots of cool possibilities with that. Here the stereo is high end, so say if you've got like an 808 sound like here, but you want it to be more wide but not in the sub section, so that you keep the sub mono, so you can toss this on and it just adds so much more character to that sample. And so you can control at what frequency is being stereoized. how much stereo separation is happening. And that sort, if you have it on really high, it just really turns into like a ping pong delay. So pretty short. I tend to keep it pretty short. Here is the AHEE's Too Loud mixer. So this is more of a sound design tool, and it's basically a bunch of limiters. So we'll take just random Foley sounds, me and my friends hanging out. Apply this. You get some really interesting artifacts in there. And oh, I love this one. So turns that into, yeah, it's all about those little shivers. All right, we're coming down to the last two, and I've got this beat again. And this up-down compressor, it is found within the AHEE's Magic Box, but sometimes it's nice to have it separate if you don't want the OTT and glue in there. And you can use it to get some pretty interesting ways of compressing your sound. So if we toss this on, definitely tell it's being compressed, and having the gets you two very different results depending upon how you use those two compressors. And then finally, the last one is the warm subtle distortion. So this rack is well, let's listen to it. So without, now with, especially in these little auto, hear those little swishes in there. So this one's just nice. So it's got the effects mix of the amount of distortion in there, the frequency range. So it's basically a band pass, and you're choosing what section to distort amount and the distortion type. And then also I've thrown in the Magic Box in here, and so you just add in a little bit of magic, and you know, it helps glue it all together. Don't want too much in there, just a little bit of magic. Gives you your character. You can also use it with the compressor. Yeah, definitely try combining all these different racks in different ways, and you're going to find lots of interesting combinations. So thank you guys for checking this out. Thanks for downloading packs. You guys are going to really enjoy them. I think you're going to use them for many years to come. And also, if you like some of these sounds, not all of them, but some of the sounds are actually from my own sample packs, like some of the ambient things and some of the drum hits and whatnot, and the 808s. I'm going to include some links below. And also, if you haven't already checked out my 25 racks, then I'm going to put a link below, so that way you can go grab those as well. And I'm going to add my socials down there. Be sure to do that thing where you click like, hit subscribe. I'm going to be posting more tutorials like this, more in-depth ones too. And definitely go hit me up on Instagram. I interact with y'all the most over there. And I'll talk to you soon. Peace, aliens.
I'ma make you bounce.